Lupe. That's what people called the little girl, a child whose fate was crushed early by horrors that no one dared to imagine. The little girl, from a very young age, witnessed things that no child should have to see and experienced pain that no one should have to endure. The mysteries surrounding her life left the entire community bewildered. Who pushed Lupe into the darkness of tragedy? Was there a hidden conspiracy behind these cruel events? Stay until the end of the video to unravel the horrifying truth behind the case that shook Mexico, the case of Guadalupe Medina. Guadalupe Medina Pichardo, known as Lupe or Lupita to family and friends, was born on January 16, 2013, in the municipality of Nezahualcóyotl, state of Mexico. The little girl was the daughter of Yadira Medina Pichardo, who had a partner named Pablo Rodriguez Escamilla, who is recognized as the child's stepfather. Her biological father's name was not made public. Lupe was the youngest of 4 siblings, with whom she lived in conditions of extreme poverty. Additionally, the children were victims of neglect. In fact, after having a home birth, Yadira did not register Lupe with the civil registry, and therefore the child did not even have a birth certificate. Her parents, Yadira and Pablo, were addictive substance addicts and engaged in theft to get money. When Lupe was about 4 months old, Yadira was arrested and sentenced to 2 years in prison. During that time, the child was placed under the care of her aunt, Marina Concepcion Medina, who took proper care of the child. Until Yadira was released from prison, she came back for her daughter. Marina knew that her sister did not have the means to care for the little girl, so she told her older sister that she could keep Lupe and even allow her to visit her daughter whenever she wanted, without any problem. In response, Yadira promised her younger sister that she would change and take proper care of her daughter as she should. Unfortunately, she never kept her promise. Lupe's life with Yadira was marked by abuse and her mother's indifference. The child spent much time under the care of others, with Yadira not caring about the treatment her daughter was receiving. Furthermore, even when the little girl was under her own care, Yadira did not offer any signs of affection or maternal attention. On one occasion, she left the child in the care of a man and his family, and then disappeared for a long time. When she finally returned, she offered to sell Lupe to the man for 2,000 Mexican pesos, a little over $1,100 at the current exchange rate. Although this family had taken care of the little girl and felt affection for her, they did not have enough money, so the child returned once more to her mother. Another attempt at abandonment by Yadira occurred when she left the child with a family in the Agua Azul neighborhood, saying that she could no longer care for her. Strangely, after a while, she regretted it and took Lupe back. Yadira's relatives were aware of the situation and offered to take care of the girl on several occasions, just like other families in the area did, but the mother never accepted. Every time Lupe was under her mother's care, she suffered violence from her stepfather. Lupe's grandmother even filed a complaint of abuse with the National System for the Comprehensive Development of the Family, DIF. But as is often the case in these situations, there was no response from the authorities. Unfortunately, the lack of action by those individuals and organizations responsible for ensuring the well-being of the defenseless girl led to a tragic outcome. On the night of 17/03/2017, Lupe, who was only 4 years old, wet the bed. When Yadira realized what had happened, she scolded and hit Lupe for not informing her. The child began to cry, and her crying woke up Pablo, who was angry at the girl for interrupting his rest. He began to hit her, and the violence quickly escalated. Soon, he began to abuse and do inhumane acts to the little girl, all of this happening while the mother looked on indifferently. Finally, the man threw the girl to the ground, causing fatal injuries. Realizing that Lupe was unresponsive, the couple wrapped her body in a blanket, and the next day they transported it to the El Sol colony, where they dumped it in an area on Zoquiaca Boulevard at the intersection of Virgin del Camino Street. On March 18th, around 10:30 in the morning, neighbors in the area found Lupe's body and alerted the authorities. The young victim was wearing a green sweater, a lilac shirt with a fairy design, and red socks. It is from these red socks that she was initially known by the nickname Red Socks due to the lack of identification near her body. The police officers found a baby blanket, her pants, and underwear. Her face was covered in dirt, had bruises, especially around her eyes, and her mouth was swollen. During the forensic analysis, experts found lacerations on her hip and ribs caused by the impact of blows, bite marks on the right side of her torso, and severe damage in the genital area. The autopsy revealed that the victim died from hemorrhaging in the pancreas, liver, and kidneys. Additionally, she had a skull fracture. The experts estimated that the victim was between 3 and 5 years old and measured 95 centimeters, nearly 10 centimeters below the average height for girls in Mexico in that age range. The child's fingerprints were taken in an attempt to identify her, but since Lupe had never been registered with any civil authority, she was not found in any records. Moreover, no one had reported a child with similar characteristics as missing. It seemed that no one noticed the absence of the little girl. Days went by without anyone claiming her body. On May 2nd, the child was buried at the Naucalpan Memorial Park. The name Angelita was written on her gravestone. Since the discovery of the body was made public, women's and children's rights activist Veronica Villalbazo, better known as Frida Guerrera, became involved in the case and took it personally. She criticized the authorities' lack of action in trying to identify the victim and demanded a more active investigation. At the same time, she began using her social media and contacts to try to locate any of the girl's relatives. She even asked a professional to create a portrait of the child based on a verbal description of how she might have looked in life. It was noted that she was probably indigenous and slender with brown eyes, smooth, dark hair. Frida nicknamed her Jojo Xochitzin, which means flower of the heart. Later, the artist Alejandra Arce joined the efforts to identify the little girl and created another portrait. This second image was published in the media and on social networks. On November 15, 2017, 6 months after the discovery of the body, it was this portrait that raised alarms within the child's maternal circle. On November 25th, Marina, Lupe's aunt, learned through a sister-in-law that there was a picture of a girl resembling her niece at the Nezahualcóyotl Municipal Palace. A few days later, Marina went to the palace to inquire about the so-called calcetitas rojas, little red socks. At that time, the guards told her that the case had been closed because the grandparents had already claimed the body. They even showed her a photo of the grandparents and the victim's body. Regrettably, the case the guards referred to was not Lupe's. It's a confusion that nearly ended the only chance of obtaining justice for the victim. Meanwhile, Marina informed Frida about everything she was doing to resolve the Little Red Socks case. Frida later reached out through social media, suggesting that the girl could be her niece, Lupe. This prompted Frida to visit Marina's home, where she showed a photo of the child taken when the body was found. Although Marina had not seen her niece for a long time because Yadira had moved and did not share pictures of the child, she was able to identify Lupe by her features and the blanket she was wrapped in. With all this information, Frida prepared a file to present to the state of Mexico's Attorney General's office, whose officials, up to that point, had not made any significant progress in their own investigation and, according to some reports, showed little interest even in identifying the child. Then, on December 14th, the activist received a message with a recent photo of the girl, identifying her as Lupe. The sender claimed that between December 2016 and February 2017, the child in the photo had been in the care of his family. The message was sent by the man to whom Yadira had offered to sell the child, who was identified as Lalo at that time. This was the missing piece needed for Frida's investigation to progress, as Lupe's aunts did not have recent photos of the girl, making it difficult to verify her identity based solely on their statements. The file, containing all the evidence gathered by the activist over 9 months, was submitted to the authorities. It included photos, notes with the results of the investigations, and even a video of Lupe talking and saying her name when she arrived at the home of one of the families with whom she had lived for a period. The police then proceeded to speak with Lalo. He had seen the image created by the forensic artist and recognized the child, leading him to testify as a witness before the public ministry. As a result of the investigations, the authorities identified Yadira and Pablo, the child's mother and stepfather, as potential perpetrators of the crime. On December 24, 2017, the Attorney General of Justice for the State of Mexico, Alejandro Gomez Sanchez, announced that both had been arrested. The suspects were taken to the Ennis prison and were charged with femicide. A DNA test was also conducted to confirm that Yadira was the biological mother of the victim, and the DNA test results came back positive. During the first hearing, the couple admitted to the crime, although Yadira insisted that she had not been involved. She also acknowledged that to justify Lupe's absence after her death, she claimed the child was with relatives. Since the child had been moved from house to house almost since birth, her explanation did not raise suspicions. Regarding the events of the night of March 17th, the defendants claimed that the fact that the child had wet the bed motivated the crime. They were subsequently transferred to the Nezahualcóyotl Penitentiary and Social Reintegration Center. Finally, on September 4, 2019, Judge Cesar Fernando Menchaca sentenced the two accused to 88 years in prison for the crime of femicide. Additionally, they were fined 449,115 pesos and another 165,323 pesos for damages, which at that time amounted to approximately $2,500 and $82 to $80, respectively. Initially, the public ministry had requested a fine of over 1 million pesos, which is a little over $5,000, but the judge decided on a lower amount due to Yadira and Pablo's economic situation. The judge also ordered the civil registry to record the child's name as Guadalupe Medina Pichardo. Furthermore, he took measures regarding the victim's siblings, requesting that scholarships be provided to cover their education from elementary through secondary school. Additionally, the relevant authorities were to determine who would assume custody of the minors. Although this information was not made public, it is believed that the children may have been placed in the care of their uncles immediately after the sentencing. Jesus Mogolan Campos, the lawyer for Yadira and Pablo, announced that he intended to appeal the case. The defender, who took on the case pro bono due to the accused's economic situation, claimed that his client's confessions were made under coercion. To support his claim, he referred to an alleged discrepancy between the medical certificate presented by the public ministry and the one issued by the prison. Jesus stated that the first certificate had no record of injuries, while the second indicated that both defendants had entered with injuries. Additionally, the lawyer argued that there was no conclusive evidence to prove the responsibility of the two adults in Lupe's death, as the judge had asserted. For him, although a criminal act did occur, his clients should not have been found responsible. The appeal sought a reduction in the sentence, and even proposed the release of Yadira and Pablo if the magistrate's ruling determined that there was indeed no conclusive evidence of responsibility. However, by the time the investigation concluded, no further updates had emerged regarding the appeal, and this couple remained behind bars. The case, already shocking, was not without controversy. On August 13, 2018, amid the trial against those accused of Lupe's crime, the television series La Rosa de Guadalupe aired an episode titled Calcetitas Rojas, which dramatized events similar to those that occurred in March 2017. Many people expressed their displeasure with the show's creators, accusing them of parodying the case and profiting from others' suffering. Despite the complaints, the episode in question remains available on virtual platforms. The activist Frida requested that the term Red Sox not be used to refer to her, as she considered it revictimizing the child to be called that after all the work that went into identifying her. The case of Lupita was gradually forgotten by the public after the sentence was announced, overshadowed by the dozens of daily crimes that occur in Mexico. In September 2023, it made headlines again due to a controversial interview with Yadira, conducted by content creator Saskia Niño de Rivera for a podcast titled Penitencia, which gives space to individuals convicted of all types of crimes. Frida Guerra responded to the announcement of the interview, accusing Saskia of glorifying crime and giving a platform to a woman who was involved in events that led to the death of her own daughter. According to excerpts of the conversation published by the Mexican newspaper El Universal, Yadira recounted that she was expelled from school at the age of 7 for allegedly getting her classmates drunk and hitting a teacher. She also shared that her parents separated when she was a child, and her father passed away when she was 8 years old. Yadira further claimed that she was a maltreated child by her mother, who would hit her because she resembled her father. Additionally, she mentioned that she started using addictive substances at the age of 12 and was abused by an uncle at a young age. Yadira stated that she gave birth to her first daughter at the age of 15 and admitted that she chose the streets and addictive substances over being with her family. The dramatic story of Lupita is a reflection of the violence present in society, which affects women in Mexico every day. According to the Executive Secretariat of the National Public Security System, during the year 2022, there were 3,154 cases of women who lost their lives in violent situations, of which 33.7% were investigated as femicides. This made 2022 the second year with the highest number of femicides after 2019. The death of Lupe and the circumstances in which the little girl's body was found touched the hearts of everyone who followed the case, including the activists and volunteers who were determined to uncover the truth and assisted in the investigation to ensure justice was served. Frida, following the verdict against those responsible for the crime, the activist expressed that with the decision of justice, Lupita's voice had resonated throughout the country and beyond. She also stated that the little girl deserved to be loved, and the most moving part of her words was that Lupe had changed the lives of her siblings thanks to the measures taken to provide them with the opportunities that she never had. On September 4, 2019, justice was served, but unfortunately, this does not change the fact that Lupe is no longer here. It also does not erase the 4 years of abuse and the terrifying mistreatment she endured just before her death. Facing a case like hers, it is hard not to wonder if the little girl's suffering could have been avoided. The short and painful life of Guadalupe Medina is a poignant reminder of the vulnerability of children left in violent and unloving environments. The indifference of her family and the authorities contributed to Lupe's unimaginable tragedy. Her story shows that every individual and institution has a responsibility to protect the most vulnerable in society. Had we paid attention and acted sooner, Lupe's life could have been different. Her story reminds us of the importance of listening, caring, and protecting the innocent children around us.